Best stream start screen ever. How are you guys doing this evening? My voice should also be clearer than usual now. I just found out there's a built-in noise filter in OBS. There was always like I had tried it before, but this seems much better than the one there was before. I'm not sure if it changed or whatever, but it's better now. Where is everyone? All right. I do have my cursor on today, so you'll know when I'm using my mouse instead of keyboard. Waiting for at least a couple of people to join. My voice is a little rough. That's because I was sick for the last week. So should be better now. What theme do I use? So glad you asked. Uh, so there is a. It's not very simple, right? So I use this popping and locking black theme, which is pretty cool. But I have my own theming on top of this, so it's very different from the theme that you just get from installing this. I could maybe share this sometime. My VS Code config is like almost 200 lines long, so it's what's been accumulated over the years, right? So like 5 years of tuning VS Code. I want everything to be like as black as possible. Hey Kevin, welcome to the stream. I guess the stream has started. We can remove that. Before we get started, I just want to set up the basics, right? So I have a very simple stack. I just have React and React DOM, the basics, and React Router, of course. Framer Motion we are not using for this project. This is a kind of a monorepo. It's my personal website. You might have seen my website already. It's the same repo. So Framer Motion is being used in the main website, but not in the blog, at least not yet. I don't think there's a way you can do that. All right, yeah, so not yet, but we might use it later. Date functions is also not currently used. Emotion. These are the four important things, right? So these are the four important dependencies. And these are just, types and Vite and stuff. My Vite config is also pretty simple, except for I have two entry points. One is for the main site and one is for the blog. So the blog is just at blog.html. And my project structure, Um, this repo is on GitHub, mk here /pw2. This is the repo, but the blog is currently not there yet. It will be after the stream. So you can see that I've been working on it a little bit. I have some of the basics done. So basically, we have with Vite, the entry point is the HTML and not the JS, right? So we have blog.html, which is just a copy of index.html for now. I'll have to edit this a little bit, like mk here blog, I guess, and the script that it loads is blog.tss instead of index.tss. So it's a completely separate entry point. It has its own create route. It's using React 18, so create route and render, and that loads the blog homepage. Is the font size fine for you guys, or do you want me to zoom in more, or how does this work? I want you guys to tell me. I'm not sure if there's significant stream lag. Looks fine. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'm gonna start the Vite server. I use PNPM for the package manager. So here's the design, right? So this is the original design for the main site. So we already have this part. This is just my logo and stuff, my 404 page. This will probably build some other time. I'm not doing it right now. My live stream thing. And this is the design for the blog, right? So first we are doing the dark mode blog. So it looks like this, and when you click on one of the blog entries, you have the thing show up on the right side. But there's a catch. The URL will navigate to the blog post URL, and if you paste that directly, you'll get the blog post full screen by default, and you'll have to open the sidebar, which is a blog list, right? And these are the button designs and stuff. So inside a blog post, there's going to be backend next. Yeah, I guess we'll just dive into it. This is a light theme version. So very simple. Why isn't the theme completely dark? What do you mean? This thing? That's just the canvas. This is the design. That's just a canvas. I can darken it for you if you'd like. I just left it brighter because it's easier to see in contrast. Anyway, and this is a light theme version, which is exactly the same. For now, we'll only be doing the dark theme, and if we have time, then site is using black colors, blog isn't. Yeah, it's kind of nicer to read when you have a lot of content like this. I think you'll see. It's not completely black, yeah. Anyway, so far I've got this part, right? So if I reload this, it's gonna load that. I've got this part. Let me let me duplicate this article so that we have a few more things here. So the articles are generated by the script blog.js, and the blog content is itself on the top level. It's a markdown file. I'm just gonna copy that. I'm gonna call that 2. to, let's do 16 or something. Yeah. So this is called the front matter, and a lot of blogging systems and static site generators do use this, but we are not using any special uh, thing to parse this. We're just passing it ourselves. And the blog content, we've not decided what to do with it yet, right? So the markdown content itself, we've not decided what to do with it. So I've made a copy of it. I'll make another copy. So we have 3. All right. So now we reload. Oh, I need to run the script. Done. And if we reload, we have the 3 articles. It should probably sort in the reverse order. So let me quickly fix that. Blog.js simply reads the folders, passes the front matter, which is easy, right? So we just split the blog across the 3-line things and split it across lines, and just split each line with the colon, and before colon is the name and after colon is the value, and I'm just adding slug to it. Yeah, where's the sort? So if I just reverse A and B and run npm log again and npm start, now it didn't work. Oh, that's because they are all on 2017, I think. Even though they shouldn't be. Let's just make 2016, and only this is in 2016, so let me just do that, and I'll run this again. Let's see, 2016, 17, 17. I think it is sorting, but just not in the order I want it to. Okay, so it's not a problem here. I believe it's in data.ts, where I'm importing the blog.json that this blog.js generates. Blog.json, that just looks like this, right? And we have the year, the slug. Slug is the part of the link that's after the year, this part. So I'm generating a list of articles here. So this should probably be sorted. A, B, and A dot published, new date, value of, that returns the units timestamp. B dot publish. I didn't actually need that. Yep, it works. So this is just a flat array of articles sorted by date now. So we see that 2016 is the oldest, and if we change one of them, let me make this 2018. And build the content again. Now we can see that 2016, 17, 18. All right. And when I click on this, it just looks like this right now, which is, of course, not according to the design. It's just the title, the subheader, and the snippet are showing up. but we don't actually need the snippet here. We want the full content, and the full content, I think actually blog needs to be inside public, and my script needs to read from public slash. That way, the blog is actually served to the public, right? The markdown files are served to the public, and we can fetch them at runtime. Let's see about that. Blog content. Blog home basically has the left side of this, right? So it's in an aside. Everything inside the aside is the left hand part of this, and everything inside main is the right hand part of this. So right now, how it happens is there's a routes, it's the React router part. The routing happens only on the right hand side, right? Not the whole page. Some people get confused by this because typically routing is done on the in the top level of the app, right? In app.ts or whatever, right? So you can use React router to route just parts of your app, which means just this part is going to change depending on the route. Right, so for the the empty route, which is the blog home, we just render nothing right now. It's just a blank div. And if there's anything at all after the slash, after the blog slash, then we render blog post. You can see this in action by going to the root, and we see that there's nothing on the right side. Route for element. Okay, so yeah, you see that there's nothing on the right side, but the moment I click on something, that links to a page, right? And that creates this. You might notice that there's a small reflow when you go forward and backward, which is a bug. It's not intended, but the whole layout here is temporary, right? Because this whole section has to be able to collapse and uncollapse. Yeah, I'm trying to pass the above statement. Yeah. Route for element is it a question? Is it a statement? Cryptic. All right. So yeah, this layout stuff is just, this whole thing is just in a Flex container for now. It should, an error has occurred. Yeah. Let me bring the chat into the screen so anyone watching the stream afterwards might understand. There's not enough space in this. Just gonna. All right. There we go. Yeah, squeeze that in. All right. All right. It's just part of VS Code now. Oh, I can create a poll now. Okay, that's cool. All right. So you can see that it does react to what we click because these are link elements. See, inside the aside, we have the aside itself, which is this whole segment, right? So I'm gonna pop this out so it doesn't mess with the layout, since we want both VS Code and the browser here. So the aside is this whole part, and main is this whole part, right? So it's just inside of Let's for now, but that will change. The actual layout, according to the design, will happen later. And inside the aside, we have the header. Hello, Avik Paul. Hello. Right, so we have the header, which is just this part, and yeah, articles, which is that flat list of articles that I just showed you before. So it's just mapping through that and creating these. And I just realized that this shouldn't be article, because uh, there's one big problem with that. Using semantic elements is good for screen readers and people who can't see uh, when they use a screen reader to view your website. Using semantic elements gives them more of an understanding of what they're reading. But we can't have articles on the left and an article on the right. That might be confusing. So I'm just gonna change this to div, because on the right side we have this, and that if we get into blog post, this is an article, right? So this is an article element. Oh, you're Walter. James Fry. Avik Paul. Man, a man of many names. All right. So this is the component I'm going to focus on first, right? And for James, let's show the design again. So this is the main blog page, and when you click on a blog post, this is supposed to come on. Right. So, all right. So let's get to it. Let's just double check that we have all the things that we need. Right. So article is the parent of this whole section, and span closer, that's for the close button, right? And the image, and that's for the image here. H1, yes. Article subheader, that's this category and date. This is being reused. This component is being reused here. That's why that's a component. And then we want to render the markdown, which is just a div for now. We'll figure out how to render it after. That's not the important part. And then finally, we have a button group with two buttons, right? Back and forward. And we'll need to figure out if back and forward exists, like if this is the last article, if this is the newest article, there's no next, only back, like only previous. Shouldn't call it back, it's previous, yeah. So so we'll need to figure out a way to do that as well, right? So we do have all the elements here. It's just not it's just not following the design yet. Let's quickly fill this in. Article dot, it should this doesn't have feature image, but that does. Let's see what's the issue. Featured image is missing. Oh, it's img. Got it. Got it. Makes sense. All right. So featured image. This will not work yet because featured image only has the path of the image itself. We want to construct this. So let's just do that now. It's blog slash assets slash plus the actual image, right? And that will probably work. For the alt, let's just say feature. That's going to warn us because it just has image in it. They don't want to just. And we have the article. So now we have everything, I think. So let's get to styling it. We are using Emotion for styling. So let's say First we want, oh, that's so broken. So let's start with this, right? Let's say class name. Import CSS. Height is 100%. And overflow is hidden. Scroll. Actually, overflow Y is auto. We'll figure out why that doesn't work. Overflow X is hidden. And we have a padding of, let's say, 3rem, 4rem. Yeah, that should be fine. And we want background color of that. Ideally, these should be in CSS variables, but we'll come back and refactor that. Actually, the padding needs to be much higher. Let's do 8. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, it's overflowing because aside needs to also do that. Let's do that. Overflow Y auto. Now that can scroll. That shouldn't happen. With 100%. Also hidden. Are you using Webpack or Vite? I'm using Vite. This is my Vite config. All right, now it doesn't overflow horizontally anymore because the parent of both the elements cannot do that. But we want a little bit more space for our side. Didn't we do with 100% on this? We did do that. Wait, it's not on the main. I get it. So all of this should really go here. Okay, cool. Got it. This can go back to, let's value of 2. Yeah, that's more like it. All right, and now we can say, of course, our article needs to be. Should we even do this? Like, should we just put? Sorry, should we just make main article and article doesn't even need to exist? Yeah, just list. All right. So we now need to make sure our image doesn't go beyond bounds, right? So CSS max width of, let's say, 80%, right? That seems fine. When your screen is larger, it becomes larger. So, and our H1 needs to be font size of 1.5 rem. I'm using rem because it's relative to, so 2.5. Rem is relative to the root font size, and that's a log.css. Let's see, index.css. Root font size is also reactive, so it's a maximum of either 16 pixels or 8% the viewport width, whichever is higher, right? So if the viewport is really large, right, the font size will scale according to it, and if the viewport is really small, it will snap to a minimum of 16 pixels. So this is how we get this to work on really large screen sizes like mine, because my other monitor, the one I'm working on right now, is my 2K monitor. It's 27 inches, and the other monitor is 4K, right? So typically websites break on small screens, but when I originally made my personal website, it was breaking on my large screens. So I managed to fix that with this. It scales really nicely with any kind of screen size. You can see that here, right? So even on a large screen, it manages to scale up correctly. On a smaller screen, it adjusts to that. Yeah. So you can see the font size adjusting when I increase the width, right? So yeah, so I'm using root. Much more fun than Minecraft. Yeah, I'll probably do more coding streams starting from June 1st. I'll have a lot more time from then on. Right. So when all your measurements are relative to the root font size, whenever the root font size changes, right, the whole screen is going to adjust. How do you do that font size thing? Let me go over it once more. So in my root element, right, so I have a font size, which is max of 16 pixels or 0.8 VW, right? So it's 8 VW is the viewport width, 0.8 is 8% the viewport width, 100 VW will be 100% of viewport. So when the screen size is really large, it tries to pick this because that's obviously going to be bigger than 16 pixels as the root font size, right? And everything on the screen in my actual website, in the main website, everything on the screen is defined in rem, right? All the units are in rem, except maybe this line. This line is single pixel, because on any screen size we want it to be always 1 pixel, right? So anything that needs to, like, the gap between these rows, and like the size of this image or the logo and stuff like that, everything is following rem. So when the root font size changes, the whole page scales with it. You need to make a conscious decision to do that. So you'll see here that the default sizes for H1, H2, and so on are all based on that's line height. Now, man, line height uses M because it's relative to that specific element instead of being relative to the root element, root font size. So the line height for H1 will be 1.2 times the line height of itself of H1, which where H1 itself has this font size, right? It's the minimum of 15 VW or SysRem, which works really well for the main site where we have really large H1s, but it doesn't work well for the blog. That's why we have separate. There's only three places where headings appear on the blog, which is one is my title, which is hashtag MCAR, which is a callback to my old WordPress blog. I'll show you that right after this. And the second is the article header here. This is a H3 and this is a H1. This is the primary heading in the whole page, right? And this is related to this, which is my old cover page for my blog. Right. I really liked it when I originally made it. It's a WordPress.com site. So I'm just using the same thing here. Yes. So the old WordPress blog posts are also getting moved here. But I'm still thinking about how to organize them, because these blog posts are very personal in nature, right? They're they talk a lot about my personal life and stuff, which is fine. I'm comfortable sharing them. But the new blog might have some technical posts, so we don't want them to mix together, or do we want them to? Which is a conversation I still haven't had with myself. So that's something to think about. But for now, we'll just build out the infrastructure and then we'll think about that. It might just be a matter of having some blacklisted categories or tags, right? And those going under a special sub route. That's probably the way to go. All right. So the font size seems fine. MCare diaries. Yeah, perhaps. Unlisted content. I'll probably have a link to it somewhere on the main blog. Like, look into my diary or whatever. Yeah, and the main site should be for the technical content. All right, so this seems fine. Maybe a tad smaller. What's 2 rem like? 0.2 rem? Yeah, that works for me. Now we need some spacing between these things. And that would be, because these are enough flats, they are not enough flats. So let's do display flats, right? Aha, flats direction column. And then we just do gap of 1 rem using libs. I'm using very few libs though, in comparison to some of the sites that you see these days. Just React and Emotion. That's it. I've already used React for my main website, and this is reusing a lot of the stuff. It's in the same repo. So if I had to build this from scratch, my whole site from scratch, then I would use Hyperactive. Anyway, so we have some spacing between the elements now. Should probably do 1.5 rem. This gap property is really cool. Primarily because of that, almost all my layout elements are display flats. Because you don't have to mess around with margins between elements, right? Using margins to space between elements is a really bad idea. It's always bound to break in weird ways. So gap is really nice because it just distributes it evenly. let's go back to the design. Now we need this content, and then we have the buttons. Let's do the buttons first. Can get rid of that temporary thing. Button group, let's say we want the buttons to align right. We can use flats. Align items, let's end. Is it justified? I think it's justified content. Yes. Then we have the button. The button content. Let's just export this as SVGs, right? So this should probably actually already exist. Let me look in assets. Yes, assets arrow, right? So I'm just gonna import that. SVG React component as arrow, and we'll do arrow, right? So now we have one arrow, which should really also be here. And we want this to be transform, rotate 180, dig. Yeah. Now we want the background of these. Let's look at this thing, right? So this is the default state of the buttons, and this is the hover state. So let's copy that. Background. We can get rid of border. What's my VS Code theme? So it's popping and locking black theme. That's the underlying theme. And then I have a bunch of customizations on top of it. These actually predate my choice of the theme. I had this setup on top of the default VS Code default dot theme, and they just work well with this as well. So it's, you can say it's a modified theme. I finished the code for my URL map, memory map file, by the way, and hooked up to denotify URL shortener. Very cool, very cool. Right, no syscalls. That's epic. I'll have to look into it sometime. All right, so we've been doing the background color here instead of here. CSS, actually this needs to be extracted out, and this needs to go here as well. So let's pull this out, and right now we have button, and we can copy that for this one, and we have the two buttons. We want cursor to be pointer. We want border radius 0.25 rem, 0.5 rem. Now we want padding of about, I'll say 1 rem and 2 rem. These arrows are much thinner than the other arrows. Should probably get these as a separate thing. Export. SVG. We move that to open continuing assets, and we'll call this arrow thin. All right. So now, yeah, now these are the thin arrows. Needs to be somewhat larger. We'll get back to that. That's 1.5. All right, that seems fine. Or not. Yeah. Let's do SVG height 1.5 rem. Need to do that. Sorry. So that's not enough. Let's do 2.5. Okay, that's not. Needs it also needs width of 2 rem. All right. So 1.5. I think that's about right. Yeah. That looks good. So let's do height of 2 and width of 1.5. Yeah, perfect. So this also needs next, which is that is comically small. Let's get the font size, set font color, and 1.5 m. Is it supposed to be this large actually? This is the same 14 and 16. Yeah, needs to be slightly larger than text itself. And now I can do display flats because it's my favorite thing in the world. And do align items center. And they just get aligned. And just do gap 0.5 rem. Yeah, there we go. Next needs to be before the arrow. Perfect. To gap of 8 rem, 0.8 rem. And we also need a gap of 0.5 rem. 1. Perfect. I do feel they are slightly larger than they should be. Probably because the font size here is really small. Maybe I should make that. Arrow not align. Let's get to it. Size and 2 rem. Okay, I kind of like that. So this is actually smaller than the main content, which looks fine, I think. If not, we can just increase the root font size. I think we should increase the root font size. Arrow, let's look at the arrow. So if we do line height of 1 m, that's not enough. Line height of 0. Does look the same way here. The font button font weight needs to be slightly higher. Not 800, 700, 600. Yeah. Should also do hover, background color is a hover. And we also need transition. Transition, background color, 200 ms. That's a bit slow. We'll do 150. All right. They are actually aligned. It just looks that way because the T has a lower height than the full font height. Compare it to N. If we still want to do something about this, let's put the next in span. And we give the span a yeah, can do that. Okay, being logos and stuff often do things like this when what is actually aligned does not look aligned visually. It especially happens when you're dealing with circles and stuff. So they sometimes cheat just like this to make it look visually aligned. It's a normal practice in design, so we can do that, right? And we also want to do on hover, we also want the color to be bright. We actually have text. Text color. Okay. And there's a small pop-up that appears when you hover on this thing, right? This card, which we'll come back to again. Okay. Now that we have that, let's go to blog.css. Set our font size. Index.css. It's currently being derived from here, so we make this 18 and 16. And let's look at it here. Yeah, 18 might be the play here. Now we want to make the button smaller because it's now in relation to the 18. So 0.8 and 1.6, 8. Okay. And the font size just becomes 1.2. That makes this a lot bigger. Let's try 1.5. 1.2. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Vertical needs to be slightly larger. Fine. Works. All right. Now we want the main content, right? We've gotten close to this design, but we want the main content. And for that, if you were here from the start of this video, of the stream, you know that we need to fetch that dynamically, this markdown. So let's do that now, right? Const log set, I'm gonna call it content, set content, use state, right? And use effect. We also want not found. And probably loading. It's going to be true by default. And let's do fetch blog slash, let's build this blog slash year slash slug .md, for which we need this stuff. Then we want to do rest.text because we are receiving text here, and that made a network call. We actually got the response. Then content want to split on that. Let's see blog.js, which is a script to generate the JSON. Here we only took the first element, but here we want to say slice from the second, join with that. This basically removes the front matter. What markdown parser do you guys want me to use? What is a good markdown parser? Something simple. Actually, we do want to process the markdown while we are doing this, because we want to convert these URLs to relative to this. Maybe we just hard code it there, right? Slash blog slash assets. That saves us the trouble of doing that. And this is fine. parseMD. So in the future, probably I'll um, do something better for that. But for now, this is fine. So we've removed the front matter from our content. Now we can pass this to a markdown parser. Uh, Actually, we just do set content, right? And set loading false, but only aha. It'll be simpler to write this with async await. So let's just make async function query const text res equals await, and if res.status not equal to 200, or if it's less than 300, we want to say set not found. And we want to just return it there. So we don't proceed with it if the response status is not 2 headsets. All right. And now we have content equals await. I don't need it to automatically convert to async. I need to write more logic here. Main, sorry, habit. We want to disable this ESLint next line react hooks exhaustive depths, because we know for sure that we only ever want to do this when the slug changes. So I guess we can say location is a dependency. Yeah, it'll still want us to declare everything. So anyway, so we have set loading false. But if restart status greater than 400, greater than 399, then we probably have a response error response, right? So let's do restart test await catch unknown error. Right. Set error. We also want that. That can be string or null, or we just do empty string is no error. Right. You might be thinking we could use something like React query for this, which you could, but I have exactly one query in my entire application. So importing a whole new library for that would be overkill. So this is fine. Now we have our content, our markdown content, and this is what we need to send to our markdown element instead of the snippet. And here we no longer want to use, because we still want to use article or not found, then return that. Actually, we only want to. Maybe we get rid of set not found, right? We just do set error not found. I know it's a redirect here, but it should ideally not happen. So let's just say not found. Rest out okay. But does rest out okay consider all its responses? Okay, it's 200 to 299. So you can say not okay, right? And for this, I guess you can say unexpected redirect. If it's over 399, then it's a 4 headsets or a 5 headsets. So we expect some sort of error message to come in. If not, then this will throw and we say and we return unknown error. So this is always going to be a string. And if loading, return, for now we'll just do loading. Right. Why does it say not found? It's a 304 because it's a cache response. And I would prefer to use, you know, less than 300 because we are greater than 299. Simply because using status everywhere else and it's more explicit. Let's find out where exactly we go. Console log. Is that an error? There's no error. Not returning from the inside if returns set error. That's true. The status is 200 now, which means it should get here. Okay, we do have the content. How did it go to not found? That's not a string here. Okay. Okay. I mean, should I blame caching? Yes. Advice may be invalid due to caching. That's all I have. Just worked. So I guess we should also set loading true. That way, yeah, it shows the loading thing whenever we change. All right, that's working fine. Now we need, I'm just gonna use marked because I'm familiar with it. It just spits out HTML, right? And we just put that in. What is deprecated? That SVGO is probably part of Vite plugin, right? We don't actually have SVGO in our dependencies. Only have plugin React, so we wait for them to update. Stable npm y stable. That also comes from. We don't care about React scripts. The only thing, or the only reason I installed it is because of the ESLint plugins. We can install the plugins themselves, but it's a huge list of, ESLint mess. That's why I just installed React scripts. I would like to remove it at some point. Anyway, where were we? Neither of them are actual, dependencies. They're only dev dependencies, so it's fine. Just install marked. Mark does not sanitize the output HTML. Should I do that? I mean, the markdown is mine. I'm not accepting user input. It would be good to do sanitize. Let's. It's a problem for later. Really, everything is a problem for me later when you want to get shit done. What's wrong with this? Could not find types. Do you want me to do add types? Does that fit it? Yeah. Let's go. And then we do dangerous reset inner HTML. String is not assignable. They want HTML. Okay. Okay, guys. Okay. Kind of works. Now we want these images to be constrained. Let's see what's happening here. It's just a regular image. So let's do add image. We want maths width to be 100%. All right, cool. And adding block to be 100. And that gives it that. I think it should be slightly higher. Yeah, perfect. Ooh, we've got most of the main structure going now. That's a block quote element. Kind of want to mess with that. Let's do add block quote. Border left. By the way, if you don't know what padding block is, it adds padding in the block direction, which is this direction, and this is the inline direction, which can change if your layout is in a different order, right? If you're laid out in a different direction, like if you have I don't know, if it's like bottom to top or something like that. There's also padding block start and padding block end. These are padding block start will be in the top of the block. Sorry, in the start of the block direction, and padding block end will be in the end of the padding direction. Sorry, block direction, and inline start, inline end. Yeah, if you have horizontal blocks, I guess. Or I think if you have your flex direction in a different order, right? And inline start, inline end, that also respects like RTL. So if your language is right to left, then inline start will be on the right side. So it's better to use these instead of padding top and padding bottom, unless you know that it's going to be on the bottom, for example. So border, I guess border inline start. This also works with border padding margin, anything that's directional. So if this block quote was in the RTL direction, right, we want the line to come on the right side. So let's do one pits solid text color. That did nothing. Let's figure out why it did nothing. Block quote. That. Oh, I misspelled it. There we go. You can see it's stuck to the left of that. That's because it has a user agent style. Apparently that's not visible. Anyway, we can do margin none or margin 0 and padding inline start to be 1.5 right? We want to set margin inline to 0. That works. All right. Supposed to be a line break there. Convergence. I think we do that. We do that. Yeah. Yeah, it works, guys. I need some water. Hold on. I'm back. What are we up to now? We need to get next and previous working, and then we want the close button and this bar, which will collapse the blog list. So that's the next couple of things. All right. So let's see about next and previous. We need to first figure out if next and previous are applicable here. And for that, let's think about this for a second. If we have the year and slug, we want it to tell us if there are articles after this and articles before this. Let's go to our data.ts where we organize all our data in one place. And here we have the flat list of articles, and here we have the nested format, right? So it goes year and slug and article, right? And that looks like this. And I guess what we need to do now is export const next and ref equals year string slug string, and we want to loop over articles. Find index article dot published that in a new date dot get full year equals year and article dot slug equals slug. Year since get full year will be a string and year will be a string because we are actually passing it out of the thing, right? So we find the index and next, if it exists, so we can just return an array of articles in -1, and I think it's nicer to call it ideas. And either of these might be undefined, right? So we should type this correctly. And that's how we type it. So either of these might be undefined. And that's how we know that article doesn't exist. Right? And here we can just do now next and, right? And here we do if and. Perfect. And if we go to that doesn't have a next article. So it only has Brave. If you go to that, that only has next. And maybe what we can do is move this to this, and so that we can drop this from here, and now we can pull this over to here and say previous, but only if there's no next, right? Our normal flow is not next. No, that will probably print false. Here, so on the final one, we want previous to be visible, right? In an article in between, we don't want previous to be um, spelled out for us. We only want next because we normally want to push towards next. We go to next, and in the last article we want it to be a previous. And I have a looks like it's not aligned here because it's the same problem. Now P is aligned correctly, so let's just put this back here. All right, now it looks fine. And now we want to do on click, we want navigate. Let's create a util, a very small util. Export const use nav. We want, you'll understand what this is. Mouse event. Right. And we say const navigate equal to use navigate from React router. And we want the link to navigate to. Where's this error? All right. If e dot control key, we want to say window dot open link, and target is blank. Else we have written, we don't need all right. So the what this accomplishes is we can do const navigate equal to use nav module utils, and here we accept the e and we say navigate. Oh, shit. That's not how it has to be. It has to yeah, that's more like it. That's more like it. And we can remove this. We just say navigate to blog slash, let's go back to our data and create another util. Export cons get path, get blog path, and we say article. That's the article, and we return slash blog slash article dot publish new date get folio, and we want the article slot. We can use this anywhere we've been using. That is just this. Okay. This is also fine. We can use that here. Can also use that here. We're going to add MD here. Let me just pass path. Let's do that here. Right. And we copy this. Next. Well, let's test that. Let's go to previous. That works. We are on 2017. And if I go previous again, we should go to 2016. And we did. It's 2, right? So go next. Next. That also works. And now control click. It opens that in a new window. It should actually open it in a new tab. But it does work, right? Yeah, the path is correct. Target is blank, it's correct. No referrer is spelled wrong. I know it's spelled wrong. Yeah, it's spelled wrong in the spec in one place. It's a funny story. They spelled it wrong, so they kept it. Referrer needs 2 R's. Like the header name referrer is actually a misspelling of the word referrer. Yeah. All right. No referrer, no opener is generally good to have, especially when you're redirecting to third-party sites, so they don't get control of your website through window.opener, right? So that's actually a security flaw. So this would, give the window.opener. Look at this. Returns a reference to the window that opened the window, right? It works both for window.open and for anchor tags. So you're supposed to use no referrer, no opener to make sure that's not happening. I guess because this is a first party redirect, like we are opening a website of our own and not a third party website, it's fine to not have this. But because this util is generic, right? So it does not know whether or not it's a first party link or a third party link. And so it's safer to always have no referrer. Um, window dot open target blank new tab. I've already been here. um, Browser still try to open a pop-up window. I'm pretty sure hmm, it's a user preference. So it's up to the browser, really. What it's oh what? Yeah, the monospace is broken in Firefox. I'm not sure why. It's fine if I install Firefox from Flatpak. Um, it's just broken when in my main instance of Firefox. And I'm too far down this instance. Not going to change it now. And why is this broken? This was working. What is the path? Blog slash. Oh, we messed up. We messed up. Right now, it is supposed to be blog slash asset slash. Oh, oh, this is in the convergence. Oh, that's because the okay, got it. It's not fixed in all the files. In this file, it's fixed. You can set a default monospace for whole itsog and it works. It doesn't work for me. It works everywhere else. It's just Firefox that's broken. Regardless, if you want me to check something, I can check it. Probably not work, but can't hurt to check. I can probably do subdued, so it looks a little less bright compared to the text. Okay. Okay. What now? Let's recap. We have this part done. We have this part done. Nets and previews are working. The pop-up is not working yet, but that should be simple to implement. We want this and this, and then we are done for today, right? We've been an hour and 40 minutes into the stream. We're going to implement this part, the closer, and this thing. I wanted to do the animations today, but we're probably not doing that now. Okay, back to work. So let's do this thing first. It's a little bit tricky because we want to calculate the width of both of these buttons for which I think maybe if I do inline flits and okay, that won't help because the width of this, I'll show you what I mean. So we want position relative because the thing that's going to hover and the pop-up that's gonna appear, it will be absolutely positioned to this. So that, let's do div plus, let's call it pop-up or preview, right? And the preview has an image and it has a title. So let's call that h3 and it has a description, which is we do want to know which of these is forward on. There's two ways to do this. One, so let's do preview is by default opacity 0 and pointer events none, right? And when we hover on if we only have one preview, then the only way to do this would be with JS to detect which button is being hovered on, right? But we can also do this with pure CSS, in which case we have I'm thinking we cannot have the preview pop up inside the button. We'll have to have it as a sibling of it. So let's do div and that and wrap this button. And we'll do that again here. Does that change our layout? It does. And why does it do that? Because of this. Because this is taking space, right? But that's fixable because position absolute. Now it's removed from the flow and it doesn't affect the other thing. And now we do bottom -1 rem and then we do ch. Ch is basically combining class names. We want preview, which is this. Actually, this should probably be a thing of its own. Let's just prototype. I was going to say this should be a component so that it can be reused on the next button as well. But first, let's get the basic prototype working, and then we'll work it out. Right? We want background color. Of that and we want to say this needs a class name, button holder. So does this, and button holder dot hover Preview. Opacity is 100. Point events. I want transition opacity. Let's say 250 ms or 300 ms. Might be fine being a little bit slow. Okay, that didn't work at all. Let's see now. Oh, that might not have worked because there's nothing actually in here. So let's give it some content. Image SRC is. It's just like this. But instead of article, we have ref. Right, and alt is feature. Still doesn't seem to be. There's also a small problem here, which where the button seems to be ending before the div. Let's make this a span. I still need some fixing, but we can get to it. Meanwhile, h3 is prev.title, and this is prev.snippet. All right. So now let's inspect this. Have the button. Let's enable hover on the button. Right, and now this should have opacity of 100. I messed up. This should be 100. That's why it's not visible. Aha. There we go. When I hover on back, it shows this up. Now, let's say that's the button. That's the preview. Let's open up the preview, and the image. This should have a match with 100%, and right 0. That forces it to be here. Let's enable hover again, and this is called designing in the browser, right? So we do the actual changes in the browser, and then we can copy them back into our code. So the image needs to be match width of 100%. That already looks much better. If we enable and disable hover, it's always loaded, just hidden and shown when hover. Yes, exactly. Okay, and the h3 should have a font size of 1 rem, 1.2 rem. That works. Isn't that inefficient? No, not really. It's far more inefficient to always be loading and unloading DOM elements than to just this is now happening without any JS, right? So there's no JS acting on it when I hover on an element. That's far more efficient than doing it the other way. And let's do image match with 100%. So preview, copy this, paste it, image, that's fine. H3. All right. All right. Now we want bottom probably to move up even further. Let's do 5 rem. That's what we needed to do the other way. Let's try now. Okay, 3, probably 4. That's about the right height, but the width is still messed up, right? Because we wanted this to be the width of this. Let's see. Let's see. I want to do at H3 and P adding of 0.5 m. We want border radius of 0.5 m, so it matches everything, every other button. So, and we also want overflow hidden so that the image also, I'll show you. Aha, we need the button to be over. Button over the image corner, that needs to make sure that that border is being, you know, rounded. We want overflow hidden because the image is going outside the bounds of the preview. All right, now that we have that, this is now now you see that because we used padding instead of gap, right? So there's a padding of 0.5 rem here and a padding of 0.5 rem here. So now effectively there's a padding of 1 rem in between these two elements. This is why I used to avoid that, and that gives us a really good opportunity to do that now. Let's say I'm gonna use header here, and instead of this, let's say header is going to have padding of that, and flex direction of column display flex, and now we have gap of 0.5. And that looks a lot nicer. Now we need to figure out how to do the width. Maybe nope, it's not possible to know the width. I think it's best to figure out the effective width of the commanding line. Let me show what I mean. So this is 140. And the gap between them is 1 rem. 1 rem is so it's 18 pixels. So that's 235 divided by 18, it's 13. All right, now if I do 13 rem, that works for this thing, right? So it won't work when this happens because now the width is smaller. It should match the width of those two buttons, but only in full screen. Unless with screen it's okay, I guess. No, on smaller screens that thing can just disappear because if it's on a phone, right, you don't have a hover state, so you won't ever need that thing showing up. This is only a nicety for the desktop. But the real problem is that this happens, right? So in hypothetically, it is possible to have it always the width of the buttons, but only when there are two buttons is the width going to be enough. In any other case, previous there's a single button and the button is smaller, right? And this preview will become smaller, which is not nice. And the same thing for nets, which is even smaller, and the preview will be so tiny it's barely readable. So I'm gonna keep it a fixed width and probably reduce the line height. Why is the line height so high? Let's do line height of 1 m. Yeah, that's 1.2 and 4. Yeah, that's fine. And now I want to reduce the font size. I feel like it's too high. 9 run. Yeah, kind of like that. Let's double check the design. The font color is a little different. Let's do color just subdue. Is that fine? Yeah, that looks fine. Now we want the same thing for nets. So let's make this a component. But now the component should take these styles with it. We'll come back to that. Let's do const preview article react.fc with one parameter, and that's article. Return the whole thing. Right, and now we replace priv with article. Yank this and do article is priv. We also do article is next. Now we can see that the previous article is convergence of all lines 2, and next article is convergence of all lines 3. Right, so they're different articles. And we should probably also snip the snippet. It's probably too long. And for that, let's actually move these styles to the component, because the component should always own its own styles. Just gonna yank this. Go there. And we just have this part here. Because the and here represents this element. Right, and whenever the button holder is hovered, we want the preview to have an opacity of 100. All right, so now what did we want to do? We wanted to make the, let's do maths height. Let's say, I'm gonna say 4 rem overflow hidden text overflow ellipsis. So That only works in the. Does it only work in the horizontal direction? Let's see. White space Nora. We wanted that. Let's see if it works. Oh, oh, it does. But we want it to wrap. Okay. The easiest solution is to make a util. Length of uh, by default. Greater than length. Let's start slice length 0 to length minus 3 plus the ellipsis or text. Right, and now just do there we go. If it's more than 100 characters, it's going to ellipsis it off. But it does end halfway there. Let's try doing 120 characters. That kind of works. Yeah, I'm good with that. I think the padding on the top is a bit high. Was it 0.8? I think it's actually margin, or is it padding? The hover. Yeah, this is fine. I guess I just want the padding to be, sorry, 0.8 run. And says one rem. This goes in the cyclic direction, right? So top, right, bottom, left. It's over on this, and then header. Oh, I see what's happening. There's a small gap in between the image and the header. And why do we have that? There's not a margin or a padding here. And this is not a flex element. For some reason that fixes it. I'm just gonna do that. That kind of makes it looks good. All right, that's perfect. Good enough for me. So of the three things that we were gonna do, one is done. We want to finish this up, and then we have this. And then all your kids can go home. Oh, what just happened? Let's grab this SVG, export as SVG. I haven't committed in a while. That's probably bad. Let's do a commit right now. Log.html entry point, package JSON. We've added marked. That's fine. Wait config. We've added the second entry point. We actually, I think we'll only commit one of the blog posts because the other two are just copies of it. Timeline, we don't do that right now. That's a completely different thing. You can commit that. JSON log.ts, it's data. Change to index.css. Arrow thin, close. Close can come later because it's not implemented yet. This is fine. Spacer is fine. Home is fine. All this is fine. Fit initial blog implementation. All right, we made our first commit of the day. Now let's import flows. And we can just replace this thing. But for semantics, it's probably good to put it inside a button. So screen readers can know that this is actually clickable. Or we can give this a role of button. That's also fine. Not as ideal, but it's fine. Click. Oh. Right. There's my icon. It has a height of 0. Why is that? Let's get that fixed. Height of 1 rem and width of 1 rem. Did I just export the wrong thing? I'm pretty sure I saw it render. Yeah, it's fine. What's wrong with this thing? Hmm, I meant. So it's probably something to do with the flats. I'm not sure what's causing it. Uh, let's just do that. And cursor pointer. Right? I will click that and it goes back to blog. Perfect. There's one more thing we needed to fix here, which was, oh, it seems to have fixed itself. It seems to have fixed itself. Okay. Cool. Oh, actually, I think we want these to line up. The close button lines up with my name, MKR. So that should be pretty simple. It just needs to have the same. Oh, header has a. Oh, it should just have padding inline. Yeah, that should fits it. Header padding. Now this thing is the actual header class. Perfect. Now it lines up. It has a padding because you see when I highlight over when I hover over this, there's a highlight behind, right? And if this doesn't have a padding, this will align with the end of the highlight. The way this text and the text here they align is because this header has the same amount of horizontal padding as this thing, right? So if you look at this, it has a padding of 1 rem in all directions, right? And the header, it has a padding inline of 1 rem now. So it has a padding of 1 rem on both sides. And that way, it aligns perfectly in this way, right? All right. So 2 of the 3 things we were going to do is done now. And the other thing was this. Slightly more tricky. And this involves us fixing the layout. The layout is, you don't realize it yet, but the layout is very broken. Because let me dock this back in, dock to right. If you look at it this way, right, and on mobile it's gonna look like this. So it's very broken. It's not supposed to be like this. Uh, 2 hours and 10 minutes into the stream. Should probably close out real soon. All right, let's see what we need. We might just come back to implement this another time, but let's see what we need, which is in mobile, when it's in this mode, right? This has to take the full screen. And when you click on something, this has to take the full screen in mobile. On desktop, this is a this has to have some minimum, or this has to have a maximum width. We can set that up right now. Let's see. Yeah, side should have a maximum width. It does already, 45 rem. But currently it doesn't have a minimum width, which is an issue. So we need to say home. So we need to say at media screen and max width of, let's say, we can actually do this in rem. So let's do 80 rem or 60 rem. We start with 80. Up to a screen width of 80, we want to say width is 100%, right? Unless the other thing is this, we'll say width of 100 VH. Let's zoom width. Aha. Where does this go over? Padding should be inside the width. Hmm. Oh, it's 100 VW. I'm terribly sorry. Probably getting too tired. Right? When you open it on a mobile, it should look like this. Until you click on a thing, and then that should take the full screen. So that's a little bit of an issue. We'll need to do some routing ourselves. I've known this since the start. We'll have to get rid of this, and we'll have to do some routing ourselves, which is for which React Router DOM still helps us. It gives us const location equal to use location, right? And we can pass our path name out of location, and that's how we do our own routing. We look at the path name and make the changes that we need. And for example, that would be like is article open is occasion dot path name dot split log What would that do? Let's see. Window.location, path name, path split. Right, and if this was just /blog, then the second part of it would be empty. We could take advantage of that. Can convert this to a boolean, and we can use this to use cx to combine class names. And we say article open. So when is article open is true, article open will be set. If this is false, this class name will not be set. So now we do not. Will this work? Yeah, it does work. So we want to add this to article as well. Right, and here we can say the same thing, except instead of not, we do is. Maybe we should move this up. Yeah, I think that's smart to do. Move that up here. Not article open and aside, right? Is article open and main. I can get rid of this. Let's say article is not open, then main has a match with 0. Likewise, if article is open, aside has a match width of 0. Which it's not respecting at all because of the padding. Maybe we just say instead of match with 0, we just say display none. Yeah, that works. Let me just do that. Yeah, that works. Kind of works, guys. Close this. We go back to this. So this is good enough for now. We do want to implement that thing, this thing, and a dark theme, light themes next time. Right? For now, this is good enough. I'm gonna commit these changes. It only show blog. What's the variable you use? Sorry. All right. So to do a quick recap, we implemented all of this today. We've temporarily used marked the markdown library to render the markdown content, and we've also made the hover thing work for next and previous, and we've also made it so that the terminal articles only have next or previous, they don't have both. And incidentally, if we only have one article, it'll just not show this at all, which is beautiful, right? And we've also made it so that in mobile view, in the blog list, you only see the blog list, and if you open an article, you only see the article. In the next episode or off screen, I'll be implementing this so that in desktop you can fold it away, and when you open the blog link directly without going through the blog list, you always see the full screen blog post, and you can always expand it, right? Yeah, so that's it for today. Thank you for watching. This has been MKR here. Subscribe if you run into this live stream now. If you're just if you're watching this later, do subscribe to this channel. I'll do a few more live streaming coding projects in the future. This should probably be always full width. Actually, I want to set a max width to the article content so that it doesn't go really long. Should be a max width of something. All right, that's it for today.